Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Sales Circle podcast. Now, if you are watching on YouTube or anywhere on social media, those eagle-eyed viewers of you will know that something's awry here. Something's a little bit different. I've moved set. Believe it or not, I've actually stolen our sister podcast, How I Failed in Business podcast set. We've just changed some lights, just added some different events. Because today we've got a special guest in. I'll use the word special because we've got a history and some good stories to share as well. But I'm joined by Richard Kinnaird, the Business Development Manager of NVC Security. Richard, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
No, thanks. It's nice because we were saying off camera, when I released season 1 of the Sales Circle, everything we did was an interview, right? So the idea was we interview great salespeople, great sales leaders, sales managers, anyone who works in sales to try and get into their mindset. And
Yeah.
I was going to say been a big fan of yours. That sounds a bit weird, actually.
I get it. I'm a big fan of yours.
Oh, stop it. But, I've known you for quite a few years now. And, look, I've been a customer of yours and, I've been a supplier of some of your colleagues as well in other lives. So our lives have always been entwined, and you're very thoughtfully and very appreciative agreed to sit down and talk sales with me today. So
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Really excited.
Thanks for joining me. But I mean, maybe just to tell me a bit about yourself, tell me about, what you do now, and let's kind of explore a bit of your sales journey, if that's okay.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, how deep do you want me to go really with it? But so my first sales job, I fell into it. So
yeah. Which is always the case, isn't it?
Always the case, yeah. No one goes, when I grow up, I want to be a salesperson. But unless you grew up watching, Del Boy. But no, so I was a chef, and then I moved to Sheffield, and I didn't really want to be a chef anymore. I hated it. It was just the first job I did while I was at college, and this job came up, and it was like, earn £300 a day, and and I was like, wow, this is incredible sales. Okay. So anyway, I went for it and I got it. Turned out it was a pyramid scheme, door knocking, selling different charities every day.
Yeah.
And I hated it. 6 months of it, I did it. And
so it was still a fair slog, considering you hated it then.
I did it over winter as well.
Oh, gosh,
so my hands, I literally, I was trying to hold the pen and my hands were shaking. I couldn't feel like my paper was wet because it was, you had to write down the streets you were on, and then you go, right, what, and everyone you went and knocked on, you'd write the number down.
Right. Okay.
If they answered,
to keep like a bit of a record, I guess.
And if they didn't answer, you left the number. If they answered, you'd cross it out. If they said, no, we're not interested. If they said, oh, yeah, we're interested, but the person you need to speak to is not here, you'd circle it so you knew to definitely go back. So you had like a system that you were taught and all this. But every morning you'd get there at 7 a.m. and you'd have to do like, they called it a main morning meeting.
I think I've heard about these.
Oh, they're honestly.
These are the cultish circle, the chants.
Yeah, and everyone's, right. And then you break off into smaller things and someone would be leading this particular thing. And I'm going to talk to you about this, and I'm going to talk about openers, and I'm going to talk to you about this. And it was all absolute rubbish. But I get it. I get why they did it. It was rubbish for if you wanted to be a good salesperson, but it was great for getting you G'd up to go and knock on doors all day because you did it all day. It was a baptism of fire. And once you've had people slam the door in your face because you've just interrupted their dinner, their family meal, and they tell you to, and then slam the door in your face, picking up a phone is easy. You're just like, so
sounds like a baptism of fire to some degree. You are in the thick of it, doing the most salesy job you could potentially do at that stage.
Absolutely. And there's an element of that people are far more. There were a lot of people that were nicer to you because you face to face. It's harder to be horrible to someone. You don't get keyboard warriors face to face. And like I said, there were some people that were just like, hey, what are you've just interrupted my family meal. Like, what are you doing? Go away. And we get the police turn up every now and again,
Really?
because someone had, understandably, they'd ring up and say there's people door knocking and they think it was a scam. And so you had to give your code and your number and all this. But anyway, so I did that for 6 months and I absolutely hated it, but it was a baptism of fire. So then from them, I went into customer service just because I was like, I don't want to do this sales thing. I hate it. And then I went for a job in customer service again through a recruitment agency.
Right.
And while I was doing it, while I was in the interview, I ended up being in the interview for 3 hours. And they kept getting other people in, and I was like, "What is going on here? Like, this is unbelievable."
The longest interview.
Yeah, honestly, they kept saying, "Oh, look, how are you for time?" I'm like, "I'm okay." They were like, "Oh, we're just gonna get someone else to come and chat with you," and I was like, "What is going on?" Anyway, it turned out they really liked me, so they were basically they hired me. They wanted to hire me, so they were like, "Look, we were obviously originally getting you in for this job, but actually we really like you and we would like to hire you."
Yeah.
So I ended up getting into recruitment, fell into it, but that was my first business to business sales.
Okay.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
It just, I took to it, duck to water. I really enjoyed it. And so it was a 360 role.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But
Start to finish. Yeah.
Yeah. I was recruiting, I was doing all this, but after 2 months, they were like, no, you just do sales. Like, because all I did was, I was the only one picking up the phone constantly.
Yeah.
Like, their phone bill went up ridiculous. It was back in the day when they still had minutes and like per calls.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh no, you just pick up the phone, you just do that. We'll deal with the recruitment, you just do that. But I was terrible at sales, so I barely made any sales.
Right. Okay.
So activity was great.
Yeah.
Activity was just
a good opener kind of thing.
Yeah. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was just flailing around in the dark, and so, something you say quite a lot, which I absolutely resonates. Learn, read, listen. Take bits that you like, and that's something I want to touch on later if you don't mind.
By all means,
really but yeah, so I did that. Came out of that, went into car sales, and that's where I really started to get it.
Yeah,
that's when I started watching videos and reading, and I had some good sales managers that were really teaching me things, and they were like, right, why don't you try this and let's do this, so I really learned a lot doing that. And then I went back into business to business sales doing, I did a bit of sales training actually while I was going to uni, because it was like, right, well, I want to do something while I'm at uni. And I did some sales training for a health and safety company. And
you delivered the training?
I delivered the training.
Yeah. Did I know that? Have you told me that before?
I did, well, the company I signed you up for? Yeah, obviously. I did sales training for them, for their salesperson at the time.
Okay.
And the owner liked me that much, he kept pestering me to go work for him.
Wow, okay.
So that's how I got the job.
There seems to be a trend here. You just can't. You get into an office and you just they can't get rid of you.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, right, I'm going now. They're like, how are you for time? Yeah. So I started working there, and that's where I got into sales management. So I had the activity. I really had like a process that worked for me. I was constantly evolving it, constantly trying to learn. And then I started hiring people, and I was teaching them, and I was going down that process, and then it became about sales management. So I got way better at that. At first I was terrible, got better at that. And then since then it's just onwards and upwards in regards to, it's always been sales in some way, shape or form. For business to business. That's what I like. I don't like business to consumer. I like business.
It's a different, because I'm going to say something here, and I don't want you to lean over and kiss me or anything like that, but wait till the camera stop rolling. Yeah. I've always held you in a high. I genuinely think, like, and we had this conversation recently, to be fair, if we could afford you as a business, we would have you, because you are the one of the salespeople that I've ever really liked, and I think actually does a good job. Mm-hmm. And we said this as well. If you do want to go check it out, we did an episode together of the How I Failed in Business podcast, season 1. So if you do want to check that out, head on over to Spotify, YouTube, check out How I Failed in Business, search for Richard Kinnaird, you'll see his episode, and shared some hilarious stories. You rocking back and forth in the chair always cracks me up.
And the car,
but I remember when we met, it was a Leicester Business Expo.
Yeah.
And what really stood me out with you, and to me this is like an absolute given, but for many people it doesn't, and it boggles me.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
You were one of the few salespeople there that actually wanted to talk to people.
I knew you were going to say it. Yeah, it's simple. I knew you were going to say that.
It's not hard. Yeah. Like, you want, because I still remember I was trying to walk past you because I had no reason to talk to you.
Yeah.
With no disrespect, your health and safety. My business isn't normally health and safety led. If I had a factory or whatever, then it makes sense. But you didn't stop me in a sleazy way, nor in a typical salesperson way. And you didn't stop me in a way of, I've been told I've got to have a conversation.
Yeah.
You just chatted to me.
Yeah.
You just had a conversation.
Yeah.
And then that conversation flew. And then, so what do you guys do then? Yeah. Oh, so we do this, we do that. Do you want to? I think you had a wheel, if memory serves me correct.
Spin the wheel,
and if you land on it, you get a certain percentage off or something. That could be, and So that doesn't surprise you then, that your kind of ability to open up, won me over.
No, I knew you were going to say that, because that was my biggest gripe. Whenever I go to an expo, my biggest gripe is seeing people sat down, for one.
Yeah.
Do not sit down. I never sit down,
Yeah.
ever. And I'm always in front of the table.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if there's a literal barrier between you. It blows my mind that people do it. And they're sat on their phone.
Or the laptop. Yeah.
Laptop. So I'm at the front constantly, and I always make sure that I take 3 people, me, then 2 others, because obviously you can have a bit of a break. But I say to them, like, if you're coming, you stand in front of that table. You are not, you do what I do. You are standing in front of that table. You are greeting people. You say hello to everyone, even if they don't say hello back, even if they don't look at you, you say hello. That's it. Yeah. That's it. That's all I ask. And then you will be amazed at how many people come up to you. And it happened all the time. All the time, people are like, you're the only person that said hello. So that's why I knew what you were going to say.
Exactly. And it really upsets me, because there's a lot of money that goes into expos.
Yeah.
For you to have a stand, you've got your stand that's 500 quid, 400 quid, whatever.
Yeah.
You've then got the time out of the business. You've got all the promo material.
Yeah.
And you've got to report back to your sales director, your MD, or sometimes yourself, and say, well, what did I get from that event? And 9 times out of 10, like I say, you work these rooms, you walk through them, people just don't give a toss. No. They sit there and they just wait, and
it's a day out of the office for them.
Of course it is. And now look, let's not beat around the bush. And this is why I didn't want you to lean over and kiss me. That was 6 years ago, give or take. I've been in business 7 years, so it could have been 7 years potentially.
It was not long after you'd started, because that was a big thing we were talking about.
That's it, yeah. But I still remember that whole interaction. And lo and behold, and another thing that I really like about the way in which you sell is, and you said it off camera as well a second ago, is your understanding of relationships and understanding that sales isn't always there and then. Can you tell me, what's your mindset around
that? So I think, the key thing for me is it's different per person. And this is why I think it's really difficult to do what you do in sales training and what anyone does in sales training, because I've found it. Things that I really like doing, I speak to someone else and they go, oh, no, that feels uncomfortable. So guess what? That's not going to work for them. Because if they feel uncomfortable doing it, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it the way I do it. So for me, when I'm sales training, or I don't really do that anymore, but you get my point. Or when I'm trying to help someone, I'm like, right, here's a few ways you can do it.
Yeah.
What do you feel comfortable in? Now you're starting here, let's say if it's new, and you're going to grow, and you're going to be more comfortable with doing that next, and you're going to be more comfortable doing that. And before you know it, you're going to be, you are comfortable doing whatever it is that is a bit more, a bit more in your face, a bit more challenging, shall we say. But for me, it is that relationship building. I would rather someone take a year, 2 years to make a decision that I know is going to be firm, and that I know they're not going to waste my time, and I know that they're going to be customers for life, so to speak. I would rather that than a logic sale that's just you caught them at the right time. Also, or if it's just about price, bargain bins. I'm not.
You don't want to compete for that.
No, exactly. Like, so for me, it's about that's where the activity comes in. Because interestingly, in your book, you talk about, so when, I'm going to get you to sign it, by the way. I brought this. This is my copy, by the way. This is my actual copy.
Yeah, I've not given him this.
There's no, I bought it. Yeah, he didn't give it me.
I'm a salesman. What can you do?
Exactly. Yeah, I had to buy it off Amazon. I've made notes.
Wow, love it.
And some of the things that we sort of talk about in that, you talk about that is like the difference between cold calling and cold emails, etc. So I did a bit of research in my own. What's my sort of figures at the moment in regards to people calling? And so out of mobile calls, when I call a mobile, it's actually working out about slightly less than cold email opens.
Really?
However,
in terms of answer rates? Okay, yeah.
So like for 25 calls, I'm getting about 5 answers.
Okay, yeah.
So it's worked out about 20%. However, obviously there is a massive difference in the quality of what you get from someone answering a phone on a mobile to a cold open email.
Absolutely.
So it's night and day. It's so.
And can I ask, with that, you were calling mobiles?
Yep.
Were you calling from a mobile or a landline?
From a mobile.
From a mobile. Okay.
I always call from a mobile, because if you call from a landline, people go, "Oh, you'll come up as potential spam."
Exactly.
So I've literally had a couple today, potential spam, so I ignore them.
Yeah.
I ring from a mobile. And interestingly, something I tell you, the other point I want to bring up about your book, an area that initially I disagreed with.
Okay.
And then I read more, and I thought, okay, no, I take your point on that.
Okay.
So the leaving messages.
Right.
I
yeah.
never ever leave messages.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason I don't leave messages, or I didn't, and I pick and choose now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is if I leave a message, I'm kind of giving myself no reason to ring back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they say, oh, do you want to leave a message? I go, yeah, can you get them to call me back, or tell them Richard from MVC called? Then when I've found in the past, when I've called back a few days later, I get, yeah, well, look, if he didn't ring you back, then he's not
Probably doesn't need
interested.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
So then but I also completely understand where you're coming from in that chapter is about building the rapport with the gatekeeper. And I do agree with you on that. A lot of sales trainers go, no, it doesn't matter about the gatekeeper. You're just trying to get past him.
It's my biggest bugbear. For me, I've always found in sales, the gatekeeper becomes my best friend.
Yeah.
They become my inside salesperson.
Yeah.
If I can sell to them, then I've got someone on the inside that's willing to back me up. And if I turn up at those offices with a bag of donuts, box of biscuits, whatever, I'm going to recognise Sally, Tracy, Joanne, Steve, Alan, whoever's done it, and I fully get both sides. Some people like to say, leave it to the mystique, allow them to call you back and everything else in between. But for me, I think that, as you would have read, and I think this is why we're so aligned, I believe in the longevity of the relationship.
Yes.
There's no point in me sort of lying or deceiving early on. I'd rather be open. The only thing that I have done historically, and I don't think I talked about it in this book, but I did talk about it on the podcast quite recently. I do the broken signal voicemail.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'll call up and I'll be like, hey, Rich, just need to speak to you about, can you give me a call back?
Yeah.
And then hang up.
Yeah.
Because then, you can either just do it by pausing your voice or just hit a mute on your thing.
Yeah.
Because you're naturally encouraging that intrigue and that curiosity of someone to go, who's that? That's probably the most deceiving thing that I've done in sales kind of thing.
See, and that's the thing. Like, I think there's such a huge, I never lie, because I know myself, when I take calls and someone's obnoxious, I actually put about the thing that made me come onto this podcast. I quoted, in
the comments. Yes.
You were asking. So we had a guy rang up and he went and he did the opener of a very famous sales trainer.
Is it by any chance this is a cold call, gonna have 30 seconds, or do you want to hang up right now?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said, I was like, go on, fire away, kiddo.
Yeah.
And he said he went into his pitch. And I thought, fair play. Fair play. And I'm never, ever horrible to salespeople unless they're horrible to me. And so I said, someone's been listening to, and I said the guy's name.
Yeah. You can say the name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
he says, someone's been listening to Benjamin Dennehy, haven't they?
Yeah.
And he went, who? Like that. I went, I was like, well, the guy that you've just like rips off word for word. And he went, Benjamin Dennehy rips me off. Like that. I was like,
it sounds better with the voices over the comment that you left on the
yeah. I was like, oh. So anyway, I instantly was turned off to him.
Yeah.
Instantly. I was like, don't be that guy. Like,
don't bullshit. Just be honest.
Exactly.
What was he trying to flog, just out of interest?
I can't even remember now.
Okay.
Because I was that. But so I was like, oh mate, I'll tell you what, look, I'm not the person. Send contact at. So anyway, and this is the follow up to this. I put the phone down. He rang back 5 minutes later and got someone else my colleague who takes no, am I allowed to swear? You just did.
Yeah.
Takes no shit.
Yeah.
And she was just like, you've just called, haven't you? And so you could tell the guy, and she went, well, you have, because I can see the number and I know you did because I could hear the other end of the conversation. Do not call again. So that's it now.
Yeah.
He's done.
That relationship's done.
He's done because he was lying, because he was arrogant. Now, if he'd have called me and he'd have been like, and if I'd have said, even if he genuinely doesn't know, because he might have just been told that by his sales manager.
Exactly, yeah. Or sometimes nowadays people are just sent a TikTok.
Yes,
or a
and
video.
He don't remember it. Yeah,
and for them, that's training.
Yes. So he might have gone, okay. He might have genuinely, he goes, oh, right. Why does he do that? You know what I mean? I've just started a conversation with you. That blows my mind. He didn't carry on that conversation and build a rapport with me. Perfect opportunity. I've just mentioned a name. I'm engaging.
Having a conversation.
How did he not jump on
I
that?
know.
But try to be the smart Alec. Try to be all macho, and I couldn't stand it.
And it's a real shame. And I was saying, earlier on today to someone, we can overcomplicate sales as much as we want to, especially if we want to sell a fancy course or whatever. A lot of it comes down to just having a conversation.
Yes.
There's no two ways about it. If you're cold calling, if you're cold emailing, if you're cold LinkedIn messaging, you are having a conversation. No different to how you would at a networking event. I mean, can I just ask you so that cold calling opener has, over the past 3 or 4 years, give or take maybe a little bit less, has gone viral. Yeah. This whole, hi, would you shoot me if this is a cold call?
Yeah, whatever in your day, if you,
And variants of that.
Yeah.
What are your opinions on that as an opener?
I think it works until it doesn't. So I know that's a very sit on the fence answer, but for people that haven't heard it, which by the way, there's still millions of people that haven't heard it.
Yeah, true.
It works a treat. If you do it, it gets a laugh. So I just try and mix it up. I know this is so difficult to get that instant take on it. But I try and gauge based on how the person answers the phone. Yep. Yeah. You can tell someone answers. You can tell if you hand on heart, you can tell when someone answers the phone. Do they answer it sound out of breath? Can you hear stuff going on in the background? Yeah. Do they sound annoyed? Do they sound like they're stressed? Can you hear people talking in the background? What do they sound like? Do they just sound like they're comfortable in their chair? Hello? You know what I mean? Like if they rise their inflection at the end of the voice, they're probably okay. Yeah. And then I will do that because they'll find it funny.
Absolutely.
But if I get someone that just, they answers the phone and they're just, they're like, hello? And I can hear, construction stuff going on in the background.
Kicking off. Yeah.
Like they are going to go, no, you can't have 30 seconds, mate. So, I in those instances, if I can, sometimes I'll just say, oh God, it sounds like you're really busy. Have I caught you at a bad time? I'm not even telling them what I'm calling about. And then sometimes they'll go, and they'll say, what is it you're calling about? Like when they can tell, if I've said, oh, it sounds like you're really busy. Sorry, have I caught you at a bad time?
Yeah.
And they'll say, oh, what is it you're calling about? I'm like, oh, so have I not caught you at a bad time? Yeah. I don't answer.
Yeah.
Like, oh, have I not caught you at a bad time? Because if you're asking me what it's about, then it must not be a bad time.
Absolutely.
And then they say, oh, no, I am pretty busy. I'll tell you what, I'll call you another time then. No worries at all. I'm so sorry to bother you. I'll speak to you later, Chris, John, whatever. And then I let it go. And I put the phone down very quickly. Yeah. Because I don't want to give them the chance to be like, no, well, what is it you're calling about?
Yeah. No, still keep that intrigue and I can call them back.
Very much kind of along the same lines as your, obviously, as you
like the stuttering voicemail. Yeah. So, and that, I mean, I agree. For me, it's overpopulated now, that whole opener, know, but again, my concern with it is it detracts away from what you've said there. Cold calling, however you want to word it, is a conversation. Yes. Right. I believe that you could speak to 100 people. You could say the same thing to 100 people and a percentage of it will like it, a percentage won't. Yeah. It'll piss off a percentage, it'll upset a percentage and everything else in between. Yeah. Because we're all human. But with that in mind, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, do you think that that's the power and that's the value that lies within cold calling or telephone sales, in the fact that you can be a bit more receptive and listen?
Of course. Absolutely. I tried an email. I tried a lumpy mail campaign.
Okay. Yeah.
Ages ago.
So are we saying proper envelope stuff out? Love it.
Yeah. I bought a few like the wooden mannequin things you'll see, just the arm, just the hand. And you see them displayed and you can
there's normally a middle finger up.
Exactly. Yeah. People always do that. So I sent a few of those out to a couple of people that I really wanted to work with. And give my right arm to work with you.
Oh, love it. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I advise you don't ever do it though, because I got a phone call from someone very angry because his wife was an amputee.
Oh no.
So they didn't find that funny.
And someone called you up?
Yeah, he was fuming. He was absolutely fuming, and understandably so. But I'd never thought of that was a potential thing. Of course, when was that going to? What are the chances
of that?
Exactly. So, but would I do it again? Yeah, probably, but just not with.
Try and keep
a body part. Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard to not offend anyone
And
these days.
This is the thing. So like, this is why I say that I think sales training is so difficult in regards to you almost have to tailor it per person. Because I did a thing for a while with as an example with the receptionists and gatekeepers.
Yeah.
I would do the thing that I believe it is Benjamin Dennehy that says, I quite liked it. I tried it, and I always try things for 2 weeks.
Yeah, give it a go.
See if it works. So I would just oh, can I speak to John, please? And they'd say, oh yeah, who's calling? Yeah, it's Richard from MVC. Thanks. And I found, like he said, that by saying thanks at the end, it almost like disrupted that pattern where they were like, you could tell they didn't really know what to say next. So they almost just gave up and went, okay. Whereas a lot of times if you go, oh yeah, it's Richard from MVC. And what's the call regarding? And then they know it's a sales call. And then they don't.
Is like a presumptive.
Yeah. It's like, I'm done talking to you. But in a very nice way. And I tried that and I've really got on with it. And
that worked.
It worked for me. It worked for me for a bit. And then I had some new people start, and I said, right, this is the opener. Try this if you get it. And this girl said to me, was like, oh, no, I can't do that. And I was like, what do you mean you can't do that? She was like, oh, it's really rude. I was like, wow, like, that's crazy that you think that's rude. It never even entered my mind. And I said, well, look, I've done this now for a couple of months, and I have never, ever, ever had anyone go, well, that was rude, or been arsey with me or anything. I think you're reading too much into it. Yeah. And when you hear it, it's like mirroring. People don't know you're mirroring. People don't, you could know that this this person is they do mirroring, or they know what to do. And they, and I did it once in some sales training with someone. And I said, we talked about mirroring earlier on, and we talked about sort of like, finishing on like 3 keywords of the sentence to get a question.
Yes. Yeah.
And I said, you'll never notice that someone's doing it. And he was like, oh, I think you would. And I was like, you think I would? You think you would? And he was like, yeah, because blah, blah, blah. And he would say something else. He was like, and I just think that you'd start to recognize that the people that are doing it, you'd recognize that they're doing it. And I literally was doing it immediately after, and he didn't realize I was doing it. And I was like, mate, I've just done it. I haven't asked you a single question. And he was like, and like literally like the other people in the room were like, yeah, mate, he's got you there. Yeah. Fair point. You've just said you would know it, and you are genuinely so. Yeah, I think it's so difficult because you've got to tailor it, and you can do a catch-all, and this is why I prefer like smaller sessions with, like, if ever I'm training someone, I prefer to do it one-on-one, because then I can gauge what they like. How confident are you? Are you okay doing? I'm okay. Pop me through to John. Yeah, it's Richard. Thanks. And then, obviously Benjamin Dennehy does a brilliant one where he's like, yeah, tell him it's John, thanks. So Pete, I'm just, and he pretends he's talking to someone. He's not talking to anyone. He's in a room on his own. But then they're not going to be like, excuse me, what is it? They just go, oh, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And
pass it along. Exactly. And the thing as well, that it shows that actually sometimes you got to just try different things. Yes. Going back to what we said earlier, different strokes for different folks. Yes. And coming back to what we were saying about training, this is why when I deliver a lot of my training, I try and break the training down to a step, what I call like a step below sales, looking more at the psychology, the mindsets, the behavioral patterns, because I can teach you loads of opening questions. I can teach you loads of closing questions. I can teach you how to overcome objections. We can talk through those. But again, if you're in that room and you're in that situation dealing with a certain type of customer, you've got to know which questions to use, got to know how to handle it. And for some businesses, they get it. Some businesses understand that. Other businesses are like, no, I just want you to teach me. I just want you to teach my team how to close more. That's all I need. Like, well, I can, but we need to go a bit deeper. We need to understand the psychologies around it. But what we're going to do, because I've just realized the time, we're going to take a very, very short break, a quick 2-second break. Yeah. And then I'd very much like for you to talk about my book, please. If that's all okay.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned for these quick short messages, and we'll be back in just a second. So welcome back to this special episode of the Sales Circle. We're joined by Richard Kinnaird, a fantastic business development manager currently working for NVC Security. And I'd like to say we're friends. We've been good friends over the years. You've sold to me, and you've been on my other podcast, How I Failed in Business, as well.
And I've bought from you as well.
You have, yes, you have, yeah. So thank you very. Of course you have, yeah. Sorry, I didn't even mention that earlier.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I completely forgot.
And I bought from you.
Yeah, exactly. We just pass money to and from. That's all we do. Exactly, no one gets any richer.
Yeah,
I just buy from you. You buy from me. And it goes in a cycle. But obviously, look, we've shared some great stories, talked about sales, and now this is the awkward bit where you're going to ask me to sign the book, I guess.
Yes, I would like. I'm gonna. Yeah, this. He genuinely didn't know I was going to do this. By the way, I asked him before we came in, have you got a pen? And then I had this in my back pocket. Literally.
And do you know what? For some thank you, mate. For some reason, I didn't when he said, "Oh, can I have a pen?" I was like, "Yeah, cool." Yeah, I thought like, what? In my head, I'm like, "What does he need a pen?"
Yeah, you
for?
shouted through like, "Did you say a pen?"
Yeah,
yeah,
mate. I'll gladly sign the book. I always feel a bit awkward when I do it, but I'll do it all the same.
Oh, perfect.
So who do you want it made out to?
We'll go with Rich.
Rich, yeah. Did you want to put any message in there or?
Oh, lots of love.
To Rich. Here we go. Let's get this signed off. But no, thank you for buying the book, mate. As a brief synopsis, did you enjoy the read? Have you improved your sales in a month?
Absolutely. I think, as I said to you, and I think this is absolutely key, what you need to do is get it all audio booked up.
Yes.
All of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to obviously get the other two, but yeah, you definitely need to get them audio booked. I like to listen to I'm currently learning Spanish randomly, and so I'm no hablo español. But yeah, I'm currently doing, and I just do it in the morning. Oh, look at that! Look at that!
There you are, my friend.
That's going in an airtight vacuum seal, and then in 20 years, I'm selling that. I'll buy my house with it.
Yeah, I'll find it down a charity shop at some stage.
Yeah, I wonder who sold it.
Who's rich?
But no, so I think you need to get them audio booked up.
Yeah, I've put it in my office. I've got sort of like a long-term project. So the things that I know that I need to do, but it's just hard to factor into day to day. And from what you've said, I put it on there because full transparency, you're not the only one. And I loved what you said earlier about the need to constantly learn. I'm a big believer in that. Yeah. And now people are ingesting more content through audio, which is no different to what the listeners will be doing today, right?
Yeah, it's so important. I think it's easier way to digest it. I know my brain works that way. Like I struggle with reading things, as in like I can read, but I have to read it several times, and my brain just gives up and goes, "Oh, you're not taking this in." So I have to read. Sometimes I'll have to read like a paragraph like 5 times because I get to the end and go, "I've not taken a thing of that in."
My eyes have moved, but nothing's gone in.
Exactly. Yeah. So whereas with an audio book, it's much easier for me to ingest that, and I go on walks, as you know. So I just listen to podcasts.
Is that what you do when you go on your walks?
Yeah, I mix it up. I'll listen to a podcast for like half an hour, and then I'll put music on so I don't get a bit, and then I'll go back to things. And
just to check, you are following and subscribe to the Sales Circle and How I Failed in Business.
Amazing. Obviously.
Got to check.
I've reviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Click the banner here.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I did all that. And but the thing is, all jokes aside, I've done it because I genuinely believe in your product.
Thank you.
And your I think it's so key. I love the How I Failed in Business podcast because it's just something so different. No one wants to talk about the failures. I need to go back on there because, obviously it's very different I'm in a very different position now than I was last time. And so, but I think that sales is so important. And so, obviously reading your book, there were so many things that like I said to you in the earlier segment, there was a couple of bits that I disagreed with initially.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, actually, I get it. So one of the things I did disagree again, but actually when I read further, I was like, okay, I get it. And again, this goes back to the individualism of what works for one. Was the research. Okay. So I've always been so against it because
researching the prospect?
Because I'm like, you're just procrastinating. It's anything to not pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And so, again, as I said to you in my recruitment thing, I was the only one picking up the phone because no one else would do it. Everyone, I'll just send this email. I'll just respond to this applicant. I'll just...
Oh, my mug's empty. Let me
go
grab a
just... and so, whereas I was like, I want to pick up the phone so I don't have to do the admin because I hate admin.
Yeah.
So... Going back to
they don't make salespeople built like you much anymore, do they, Richard? Jesus.
But this is where, but I absolutely do see the value in it for certain situations. So, as an example, if this person is the decision maker, and if it's maybe a high ticket sale, or it's not just a quick, selling a £10 book on Amazon or whatever, it's a high ticket thing, then it does pay to do some research.
Yeah.
100%. And also, it would make you feel better if you're early on in your stages and you in your career as a salesperson, and you do feel a bit, you are a bit nervous. My caveat to it is, as I said earlier, 25 average to mobiles.
Yeah.
5 answer. So you might spend 2 to 3 minutes researching.
Yeah.
Wasted. Then you pick up the phone and it rings out for 30 seconds. So you've wasted 2.5, 3 minutes, which doesn't sound like much, but if you do that 20 times, or 25 times, it all adds up.
Oh, 100%. And I see that. And I always say research, but I think procrastination is probably the biggest danger to salespeople.
Yes.
Whether they know they're doing it or not, it happens. And I've seen it. Sometimes in my own team, but in other teams I've worked, they've used that research point as a procrastinating factor. It always worked for me because I work quite quick, my brain ingests information quite quick. I could literally bring up a website. As I'm dialing, I can get some keywords and key points to talk about and everything else in between. I mean, so I do agree. I mean, I'll share a story with you. I don't know if I've told you that this happened.
Okay.
I shared this on the podcast. I'll be honest, where your interview comes out, I don't know if it's coming up or if it's just been gone. I'm not too sure.
Okay.
But on the episode where we're talking about our bad experiences with salespeople, I shared a story about a security salesman who came here to sell us some security. Have I told you this story?
No.
So he came, it was several months ago. I wasn't here. He was speaking to one of my team members. My team member told me this story, but I believe what she says is true.
I already have an idea of who it might be. I'm not going to say.
Okay.
I'll talk to you after, though, because my boss, when he watches this, will know exactly what I'm thinking of. Anyway, go on.
Well, like I say, I've got to give him full credit. He did the old school door knocking thing, right, which is wicked, right, which is absolutely wicked.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't fault him for that. But the story that I was told by my colleague is this person just talked and talked and talked and talked. Yeah. He looked at the alarms we've got and went, they're shit. Like, you need to get better than them, all this kind of thing. And it was very much, we do this, this is why we're so good, this is why you should choose us. And she was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I see your point. Like I said, I can't fault him because he did the door knocking, right? The point I'm trying to get to is it was very heavily publicised that about 8 months prior to him turning up, we got burgled.
Yeah.
So we got done, not only did we get done over, but the village we're in, Counterstop, probably about 6 or 7 months ago, we're in kind of one of those like crime waves. These little gangs that go around village to village, they move on. And some of those, the local shop down the road got, there was an armed robbery. I say armed, I think they were armed with a stick, which is still an armed robbery, but, not nice. So we're in a high crime rate. Now, if that individual had started that conversation of, oh my gosh, I've seen you got burgled a little while ago. Was everything all right? Did they take much? Gosh, and did you sort things out in insurance? So what systems you've got in place to stop that happening again? And, I saw the corner shop got done down the road. Do you guys lock the door? Like what happens? All this kind of thing. Oh, I see you've got this alarm. So when that goes off, who gets the notification that that's gone off? Asking all these probing questions, that could have then allowed, albeit he wasn't selling to the decision maker, but my argument would be is he's getting my influence within my business to then say, Rob, this person said this person said that. Instead of saying users do this, do that, he's gone, he's not asked the right questions kind of thing. Is that what you're expecting from that story?
Yeah, absolutely. And I expect it from 80% of salespeople.
Yeah.
It's, they go straight into the pitch, and it's the equivalent of just meeting someone and, just being like, hi, I'm Richard, and I live at,
here's my life story.
Yeah, here's my life story, and I've got 2 dogs, and I like to walk the dogs, but, oh my God, all right, okay.
Yeah.
And so the key thing you said there, like you say, if it's all about questioning, which is obviously one of your and you say it's your key chapter, I think, is so true, is about questioning, and I could not agree more. Because you uncover so much when you question. You uncover things that they didn't know, and then they end up talking themselves into it.
Absolutely.
Which has been so huge for me. And so that's the really key chapter that I really, really enjoyed. And, and obviously to quickly touch on the bit about the research again, where I started to agree with you, because like I said, at first I was you do go on to say, don't use it as a procrastination, don't use it as a tool to get out of sales. It's a quick thing. You know, if you need a bit of help with it.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely agree. If there's people out there that are struggling and they're going, well, I just feel a bit nervous about making that call, do it. I mean, the key thing is it's never going to be as bad as you think it's going to be. There's not a single call. The worst thing that someone's going to do is tell you to F off and put the phone down. That is literally the worst thing that anyone could ever do to you on the phone. And if they're doing something that somehow is worse, put the phone down on them.
Exactly.
It's very simple. Like I say, it's not like one of them was door knocking where people could scream in your face if they wanted to.
And worse, to be fair, if they wanted to. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but questioning is so important. You know, and so like you say, if that had been me and I'd have turned up, you know, I already knew because, you know, we're friends and I knew about the situation, and I'm never going to take advantage of that, so that's why I haven't brought it up. But you know, now we have.
I see the brochure in your back pocket there.
Yeah. I just did a quick survey of the alarm system before I came in here. But no, you do, you know, like you say, you ask the questions and say what, you know, you delve in. I think I've said this before. Like someone said to me once, they were like, okay, well, if you're driving home, you've got a headache, and you haven't got a headache, you drive home, and on the way home, it's 2 a.m, you need some fuel, you stop off, you fill up your car, you go into the petrol station to pay, and as you walk past, there's painkillers, £5. You go, God, £5? Not a chance. Even if you think, I need some at home, I've run out, you ain't buying them at £5, so you pay for your fuel and you go. Now flip that. It's 2 a.m, there's nowhere else open. You go there because your head is killing, and they're £5. You're buying them.
You pay it. Yeah.
And so it is, I know it's such a cliche, but it's that finding that pain point.
But it
do
is
that by questioning.
It is, because even if we go back to that individual, that youngish lad, even if he hadn't done his research, if he'd have just asked questions, you know, that would have opened it. Okay, so have you ever had any issues?
Yeah.
Oh, we got burgled 6 months. Oh gosh. That then opens another line. Oh, so that alarm. So who gets the notifications there? Okay, and what at 3 o'clock in the morning? Does he want to be coming out to and be confronted by 6 or 7 lads? Yeah. I mean, he probably would, but you know, does he want to go through that? And you know, what about the equipment on site? It's surely you've got over 10 grand. Okay, do you know, it's owning that conversation up instead of saying, going back to your analogy, which I use a lot, which I love. Instead of just saying, hey, here's this pill, you're going to love this pill. Yeah. You know, you can take that. It's sitting down like the doctor and saying, what pains are you going through? How long has that been going on for? Have you got any other symptoms? You know, and if that symptom continues, what's the worst thing that could happen?
And then when they give you their diagnosis and they give you their thing, you trust them a lot more, and you've built that credibility. I know we're using a doctor as an analogy, so people just tend to trust people in white coats. Anyway. But it is true. You are much more likely to trust them if they go, well, let me ask you all these questions. When I years ago went to have, I say years ago, it's probably about 4 years ago, I had a new kitchen. We went to a few places to look around, and the place we ended up buying from was someone that approached us, came to say hello. Everything all right? Do you need help? Do you want me to tell you where everything is? Lovely young woman, really smiley, really lovely. Was really approachable, but she also did the good thing, which I learned when I was doing car sales: approach, but don't be in your face. So we used to do a thing in car sales, and so I'm probably giving away a bit of a trade secret, but we would go to a car that was near the car that someone was stood near. Yeah. So let's say you're stood looking at a Corsa. I get the keys for the Astra that's 3 cars down, and then I walk past and go, "You all right, guys?" Walk past them
as if you're busy looking at that car.
I just happen to be over here. Oh, isn't that weird? and then I, you open the car up and you do nothing. You just open it and they don't know what you're doing.
Check the glove box kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And is everything? Do you want me to get the keys? Well, I'm just going back up now. Do you want me to unlock it? Yeah. Oh, would you mind? Of course not. I'm going that way. Yeah. I did that on purpose. And so she probably did that with us. Well, I mean, she came to ask whether we were okay. But anyway, my point is that there were other people that we had to approach. And we were like, we're looking at a new kitchen. So what do we do? What's the process? Do we have to get a designer out? She came over. She was like, where are you at in your process? What are you looking at? And so we explained. She was like, oh, that's amazing. And what sort of things are you feeling? Are you want traditional? All before you know it, she's asking us loads of questions. And genuinely on that visit, on that thing, bear in mind we were kind of waiting. We booked an appointment for someone to come to our house to measure it all up. And And we ended up going with them, and we bought it, and I'm still paying for it today, even though I've moved and I'm about to move again. But that's on me. But yeah, so like it is. I think there's such the questions are just so. If your chapter 1, if you're going to read one thing, read chapter 1.
Thank you, my friend.
You know what I mean? It's all about questioning, open questions. You know, and then when you hear something, you've got to, there's a book that sorry, not your book, but
no, plug it, mate.
Incredible book. Never Split the Difference.
Yes, great book. Yeah, we'll make sure we share a link to that in the show notes or the description below.
Incredible book. And obviously he calls it the Black Swan. No one knew there was a black. Everyone used to think that swans were white, and then eventually someone saw a black swan, and they're like, "Oh my god!" So that's why he calls it obviously Black Swan, his company. But he was like finding that black swan, finding that bit of information that no one really knows is important, but it is important.
It is. Yeah.
And you can't do that without question, because no one's just going to talk at you and tell you everything.
No, selling isn't telling. That's what I say. Yes. No, telling isn't selling.
I knew what you meant. Yeah. I mean, it works both ways.
But it does. Yeah. You can't talk someone into a sale, but you can question someone to want to buy. That's,
you can talk them out of a sale.
You certainly can.
You can talk them out of a sale.
Well, just because of time, we'll slowly start to wrap up, if that's okay. I've got a question. I don't know whether you'll be able to answer it. I mean, you might be able to. If you could go back to
Paris. Sorry.
If you could go back to day one of your sales career, if there was one thing that you wish you knew in those, or even on those early stage of sales, what's the one thing that your matured head has learned that you think that every salesperson should know when they're just getting started?
I'm going to take time to think about this one.
It's hard to nail it down to one.
That's exactly. Yeah, because there are so many, 2 ears, 1 mouth, sort of thing. Okay, I'm going to be controversial.
Oh, I like it.
Doesn't matter what you're selling. Doesn't matter. I could walk into any business and I can sell whatever it is that they're selling. As long as I've got a base knowledge, I can sell anything, just like you can. What matters is, I'm gonna stick with it. What questions are you asking? Because you shouldn't be telling them about your product. You should be asking them about what product they need or service. What product? I don't need to know. I with the greatest respect, this is going to sound really disrespectful.
No, not at all.
I could sell your sales training without ever doing it, knowing what you're going to teach.
And I believe that.
It doesn't matter. Because what does sales training fix? Poor sales in a business. Okay, right. Well, tell me about your poor sales in a business then. I hate the whole sell me this pen. All right, write your name down. I haven't got a pen. Oh yeah, okay, right. It's I hate that. But as a reductionist argument, it does work. And so that for me that's what I would tell myself. Doesn't matter what you're selling. Don't spend hours, worrying about the minutiae of the service or the product. Because if you're doing that, all you're going to do is tell them about it. And you're just going to try, and there's another feature, and there's another feature, and there's another feature. I want to know that one benefit they need, that one thing, one problem they're going to solve, and then I'm going to back it. Okay, well, there's the benefit. That's the benefit that's going to solve that problem. So what's the feature that's going to give that benefit that's going to solve that problem? So I work backwards.
Love that.
I need to find the problem to solve, to work out what benefit I need to give to solve that problem, and what is the feature that I'm selling that has that benefit which solves that problem.
And it's without, I absolutely love that. And without trying to devalue what we do, sometimes it can just be that simple. I think sales gets complicated when you've got sales managers, sales directors going, well, I sold it this way 20 years ago. This is how you must talk about the features. You must tell them this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
No, just
PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Just ask the question.
Yeah.
Find that pain point, find that black swan, map that to a benefit, and allow the conversation to go from there. It's as simple as that. And if that pain is massive, and if you've sold enough value in that conversation, it doesn't matter what price it is, because that value is there. Like you say, this bottle of water, I bought this in a multi-pack from Sainsbury's, probably cost me 20p maybe. In an airport, because I'm thirsty and I need some bloody water, it's going to cost me £5.60.
Yeah.
And am I going to pay for it? Absolutely. Am I going to second guess it? Probably not, because I bloody need it. That's the thing,
You buy emotionally, justify logically. And so, you know, I think that's a key thing. You've got to sell the emotion.
Love that.
Which is so true. You know, there's so many things about it. And so, yeah, I mean, God, we could talk about this all day, but I'm, you know, conscious of time. So
Mate,
I won't carry on.
No, genuinely, I feel like we need some beers here, some whiskies. We can talk sales. Maybe, look, we need to invite you back maybe, because genuinely, I feel there's still more we could uncover. There's still more
we could talk about this all day, mate. Yeah,
bring
absolutely.
In. But obviously, look, you know, if is there anywhere people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you or NVC security? How's best?
any security requirements, whether that's man guards, event security, or the things I sort of focus on is construction, temporary site security, or vacant property security. And obviously business. So, you know, like you had, you know, if there's an alarm, do you really want you being woken up at 3 a.m. to go out and potentially, you know, get confront 3 guys? We've got trained people that do it for you. So yeah, NVC, November Victor Charlie security. And yeah, we're nationwide, but we've got a site in Derby, we've got a head office in Derby, we've got a site here in Leicester. And yeah, if you just type in NVC security and obviously, you know, ask for Richard and I'll get you sorted.
Amazing. What I'll probably do is I'll drop a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes. Is that all okay? Just so then people can just stay in touch.
Yeah, put my mobile number on as well. Well, that's fine.
Stuff. But mate, honestly, I'd love to sit here and just chew the fat all day, and maybe look, we need to kind of do it again.
Let's do it again.
Thank you for coming in, and of course, thank you to you for watching or listening. If you're listening over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, just do us a quick favor, please, because Richard has been fantastic, and unfortunately, his checkbook is massive. For us to get him here has cost me a lot of money, right? So to help me overcome that expense, I need you to subscribe for me. That'd be absolutely fantastic. But we've got another episode coming out next Thursday. As always, the audio will hit everywhere at 5:30 in the morning, and the YouTube video will hit 4:30 in the afternoon. So make sure you stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, all the best. And that's it for another episode of The Sales Circle. Make sure you hit that follow button. Join us over on social media, and we'll see you next week.